In the quiet village of Willowbrook, surrounded by ancient oaks and winding streams, lived an elderly woman named Clara Thompson. At 78 years old, Clara had seen her share of joys and sorrows. Her hair was a soft white, like fresh snow, and her eyes held a gentle brown warmth that spoke of a life filled with love. She lived in a modest wooden house at the edge of the woods, where the air always carried the scent of pine and wildflowers. Clara's days were simple, tending to her small garden, reading old books by the fire, and remembering the past. Clara had been married to Henry for 50 years. He was a tall man with a booming laugh, a farmer who worked the land with strong hands. They had 2 children, a son, Robert, who moved to the city for work, and a daughter, Emily, who lived nearby but was busy with her own family. Henry passed away 5 years ago from a long illness, leaving Clara with an empty house and a heavy heart. She missed his stories, his touch, the way he hummed while fixing things around the home. One crisp autumn morning, as leaves turned gold and red, Clara decided to take a walk in the woods. She often did this to clear her mind. The path was familiar, lined with mushrooms and ferns. But that day, something unusual happened. Deep in the trees, she heard a faint whimper. Following the sound, she found a small dog tangled in brambles. He was a scruffy mutt, with fur the color of caramel, one ear floppy and the other standing straight. His eyes were big and scared, and he had a limp in his back leg. "Oh, you poor soul," Clara whispered, kneeling down carefully. Her knees ached from age, but she ignored the pain. She gently freed him from the thorns, speaking softly all the while. The dog didn't bite or run. Instead, he licked her hand as if saying thank you. Clara named him Buddy right there. She carried him home, though he was heavier than he looked, and bandaged his leg with old cloths from her sewing kit. At first, Buddy was shy. He hid under the table, only coming out for food. Clara gave him scraps from her meals, bits of bread, cheese, and soup. She talked to him about Henry, about the good times. "Henry would have loved you," she'd say. "He always wanted a dog, but we were too busy with the farm." Days passed, and Buddy grew stronger. His limp faded, and he started following Clara everywhere. In the garden, he dug holes beside her as she planted bulbs for spring. At night, he slept at the foot of her bed, his steady breathing a comfort in the silence. Clara felt less alone. Buddy's wagging tail greeted her each morning, and his playful barks made her laugh, a sound she hadn't heard from herself in years. But life in Willowbrook wasn't all peaceful. The village had its secrets. Rumors whispered about strange happenings in the woods, lights at night, missing animals, even old tales of a hidden treasure from long ago. Clara dismissed them as stories, but one evening, as the sun set, Buddy acted odd. He growled at the window, his fur standing up. Clara looked out but saw nothing. "What's wrong, boy?" she asked. He whined and paced. That night, a storm hit. Thunder shook the house, and rain pounded the roof. Clara couldn't sleep. Buddy jumped onto the bed, something he never did, and curled close. In the flashes of lightning, she thought she saw a shadow outside. Her heart raced. Was someone there? The next morning, the storm had passed, but Clara found footprints in the mud near her garden, human footprints, leading into the woods. She felt a chill. Who would come near her home? Buddy sniffed the prints and barked fiercely, pulling her toward the trees. Against her better judgment, Clara followed. They walked deeper than usual, past twisted roots and fallen logs. Buddy led her to a clearing she didn't remember. There, half buried in leaves, was an old metal box. Clara's hands trembled as she dug it out. Inside were letters, yellowed with age, and a locket with a photo of a young couple. The letters were from Henry, but not to her. They were addressed to a woman named Margaret. Clara's world spun. Henry had a secret. She read the first letter. "My dear Margaret, our time was short, but I cherish it. The child we lost haunts me." A child. Clara sat on a log, tears streaming. Buddy nuzzled her, whining softly. She had no idea. Henry never mentioned another love. Was their marriage a lie? She felt betrayed, angry, sad all at once. Back home, Clara hid the box under her bed. She couldn't eat or sleep. Buddy stayed by her side, refusing food until she did. Days blurred. Emily visited, noticing her mother's pale face. "Mom, what's wrong?" Clara brushed it off. "Just tired, dear." But the suspense built. One night, Clara dreamed of Henry. He stood in the woods, saying, "Forgive me, Clara. It was before us." She woke sweating. Buddy licked her face. Determined, Clara decided to learn more. She went to the village library, Buddy trotting beside her. The librarian, old Mr. Jenkins, helped her search records. Margaret was a girl from Henry's youth. They were engaged, but she died in childbirth, along with the baby. Henry moved to Willowbrook to start over, meeting Clara. It wasn't betrayal, it was grief Henry carried silently. The letters were his way of saying goodbye, buried in the woods where they met. But how did Buddy know? Another twist came. Clara remembered, the day she found Buddy, he had a collar hidden under his fur, old and faded, with a tag saying, "Max." She polished it and saw an engraving, "To Henry, from Margaret." Her heart stopped. Was Buddy Max? Impossible. Henry died 5 years ago, and this dog looked young. But the tag matched. Clara dug deeper. Village folks said a stray dog roamed the woods for years, never aging much, always near that clearing. Legend spoke of a guardian spirit, a dog protecting lost secrets. Clara confronted the mystery. She returned to the clearing with Buddy. "Show me," she said. He dug furiously, unearthing a small stone marker, "Margaret and Child, 1950. Henry had made a grave. Tears flowed. Buddy, or Max, sat beside her, as if understanding. Clara realized, this dog had been Henry's companion in youth, somehow surviving, waiting. Was it fate? A miracle? The bond deepened. Buddy became her eternal companion, healing her heart. Emily's family visited more, playing with him. Clara shared the story, turning pain into peace. Years later, as Clara grew frail, Buddy stayed vigilant. On her last day, he lay beside her, eyes full of love. She whispered, "Thank you, my furry friend." He whimpered as she passed. But the story didn't end. Emily adopted Buddy, and he lived on, watching over the family, eternal, bonded forever.